The 0-1. Lined into center. There's Bader. Has it! 17 consecutive wins. The run of 21. It's been historic, amazing, incredible.
What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to the Humm Baby Baseball channel. Today we're talking St. Louis Cardinals, and we got the Cardinals expert here on hand, Charlie Marlow. Go check out his channel. I'm going to link it in the description. I'm going to link it in the comments section. And obviously, I appreciate you coming on, first of all.
Eric, yeah, no problem. Glad to be here. Thanks.
Yeah, no problem at all. And obviously, y'all just made this is a good timing because just yesterday, if y'all haven't heard, the legend, the future Hall of Famer Albert Pujols is coming back to St. Louis. So he's probably going to be retiring as a Cardinal, which is awesome. And y'all also picked up Corey Dickerson in the offseason, Steven Matz in the offseason, Nick Whitgren in the offseason. So, and obviously last year you had this awesome run to make the wild card, which I predicted, and y'all did it. And you're looking really awesome for a while there. Unbelievable stretch. So what are your thoughts on the offseason, just overall thoughts going into 2022?
You know, Cardinals baseball is always just it's the number one thing in town in St. Louis, and everybody went through the lockout, obviously, so it's great to have just baseball activity back and transactions after the lockout. You know, it started really, the Cardinals had the first free agent signing after the lockout, which was Drew Verhagen, who formerly of the Tigers, then he went out there and pitched in Japan. So this offseason, the Cardinals needed to add pitching depth, and then also that platoon bench bat type situation. And I think they addressed all those needs. You started with, and when I say addressed, then we had some injuries, which I'll bring up in a second. But so they got Verhagen, who's a good swing man, who can be a starter. He might be a starter now because Jack Flaherty's injured, but he can also give you length out of the bullpen. And then they added pieces like Nick Whitgren, who I think, a reliever from the Indians, who should help out in the bullpen. You get Corey Dickerson as your left-handed bat. He can be your DH. He can be an outfielder. He can provide you some damage off the bench, which the Cardinals had none of that last year. Even though they went through that 17-game winning streak, that was a real weakness of the team. They had nobody to give you any damage off the bench. So you got that now from the left side with Dickerson. And then, of course, as you mentioned, it was reported Sunday. It was official yesterday. They had the press conference on Monday. Albert Pujols back with the Cardinals. And we know he's in his 40s, and he doesn't hit righties very well anymore. Didn't last year, but he's still a weapon against left-handed pitching. He had something like, I think it was a 294 batting average last year, and a high slugging percentage against lefties. So $2.5 million deal plus incentives. He's going to put butts in the seats, obviously. He's going to go for 700. If he gets 21 homers, I mean, that would be a huge season, because last year he had 17 in about half a season worth of at-bats. So I think the Cardinals have done a good job of addressing what they needed. Steven Matz, you get that started before the lockout started. But then you had early injuries here in camp to Jack Flaherty, who's your ace with Adam Wainwright, and also Alex Reyes, who was your all-star closer last year, who was either going to be a starter if somebody else got hurt, or length out of the bullpen, potentially a high leverage reliever, could be the closer again, although the new manager, Ali Marmol, is going to kind of switch it up a little more. But the fact that Alex Reyes is on the 60-day injured list and Jack Flaherty is probably going to miss a month, I do think the Cardinals need another veteran starter. It doesn't look like they're going to go that route, though.
Yeah, I was just looking at your rotation just now. Let me share this tab here. So, like you said, who is Flaherty. So Flaherty's out. So you got Wainwright. Steven Matz now, Dakota Hudson, Jake Woodford. Is he possible for the fifth starter?
He is. So when you look at your Fangraphs tab right here, so the good part is this first month in April, you can have a 28-man roster to help deal with this. So there is a chance that Jack Flaherty is only out for about a month. I think he's going to be out at least a month. Could you see him in early May? We'll see. But right now, I mean, Adam Wainwright at the age of, 39 or 40?
Yeah.
He's already 40.
40, yeah.
He's pitching some of the best baseball of his life. So he'll be your one right now with Flaherty out. You got everybody else is kind of a 2, 3, 4-ish, I feel like, with Flaherty being out. So Miles Michaelis, he has a big contract. He's in there. Steven Matz just signed a nice contract, a 4-year deal. So he's in there. Dakota Hudson is coming off basically missing all of last season with Tommy John. He came back at the end and threw some games in the minor leagues. So those are your 4 for sure starting pitchers if nobody else gets injured. And then your 5th, Jake Woodford is in the mix. And I also think this Drew Verhagen is in the mix.
Oh, right.
Who came over. He kind of rediscovered himself in Japan. And the Cardinals have had a lot of success with going over to the Asian leagues, Korea and also Japan. They got a couple relievers. They got Sunwon Oh back in the day. They got KK, who pitched last year. And then even Miles Michaelis. Miles Michaelis was a guy who pitched with, I believe, the Rangers and the Padres and hadn't really figured things out. Went over to Asia, pitched well in Japan, and came back and pitched really well for the Cardinals and then got a big deal. So I think the Cardinals are looking for that same recipe with Drew Verhagen.
Awesome. Yeah, it looks like you got plenty of options then. I mean, you add Matz, the lefty to the, and that's funny. Yeah, you talked about your main guy there, Adam Wainwright. Like I thought like 5 years ago he was going to retire, and every year he comes back, and every year he's still good. So I don't know when he's going to get old.
Well, what's funny about that is he'd probably tell you that if you go back to, I was just looking at this today. I believe it was around 16, 17, 18. He had some rough seasons. He was injured. There was a game, I believe, in San Diego where he was throwing like 82 miles an hour. And he walked off the mound, and everybody watching thought he was done. And he figured it out. He got enough velocity back. I think his average fastball is something like right around 90, right under 90. But he also, first of all, he's always had one of the best curveballs in baseball. So that's his go-to. But I was actually just looking today at his pitch mix. And he just doesn't throw that four-seam fastball, right? I mean, a major league hitter is going to be able to hit a 90-mile-an-hour four-seam fastball, but he throws a ton of sinkers, a ton of cutters, and a ton of curveballs. And so at the age of 40, he's a pitcher. He's crafty. He has just enough velocity to keep you on your toes there. And what did he win last year? I think 17 games, whatever it was. I mean, he was seventh. He was seventh in the Cy Young last year as a 39-year-old.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, this guy just keeps coming back. I'm going to stop thinking that he's going to retire. I mean, he may, obviously, eventually he will, but at 40 years old. But
the other part is, look, he got a nice contract again. He's making $17.5 million, and I always call Adam Wainwright the perfect human. He's literally like the perfect person. What he and his wife and family do, they just adopted a son. They have this great foundation where they have wells being built in impoverished countries, and they build hospitals in some of these countries that need it. So look, any money that goes to Adam Wainwright, he's not buying flashy cars and all that. All the money he gets, he's literally helping the world with drinking water and medical supplies in countries that need it. He's the perfect person, basically.
Wow, that's awesome. No, I wasn't aware of that, but hopefully he has a good season for y'all, and he's looks like he's right at the top of the rotation. And then your lineup, we got to get to the offense here. We'll talk about the bullpen in a minute too, but so Tommy Edmond, Paul Goldschmidt back, Tyler O'Neill. You got Arenado back, of course. Dylan Carlson, Molina is back. You added Corey Dickerson, a left-hander. Paul DeYoung. You got a good mix of switch hitters in here, lefties, righties, Harrison Bader. The lineup looks pretty strong again.
Yeah, and then add Pujols right in the middle of that.
Right.
Lefties, because that move just goes official. So that's what I think is going to be interesting with the Cardinals. I think they're going to play more matchups in terms of especially who bats leadoff. The middle of the order is pretty good, obviously. But Ali Marmol, the new manager, has said it's going to depend on how these guys hit. For example, Dylan Carlson, a switch hitter who is a really good player, and he's very young, play right field, switch hit. They're going to try him at leadoff here and there. Tommy Edmond is your prototypical, when you look at him, leadoff hitter, but he doesn't have a great on-base percentage. But he's a switch hitter who's fast and can steal bases. If he can get his on-base percentage up, I think he makes a lot of sense at the leadoff spot, but he's not a big on-base guy, whereas Dylan Carlson gets on base more. So I think the way the Cardinals manipulate the lineup will have a lot to do with some of these guys at the bottom of the order. If they produce, for example, if Paul DeYoung produces, right, and he could bat, let's say, sixth for you, depending on who's pitching, that will kind of determine where Dylan Carlson hits, because Dylan Carlson can also be a guy who hits fifth for you. Maybe he hits second, but I would think just looking at, it's going to be hard to move the Goldschmidt, O'Neill, Arenado. That's a really good middle of the order, 2, 3, 4. Maybe Albert hits fifth against a lefty. Corey Dickerson hits fifth or sixth against a righty. Tyler O'Neill's one of those guys where, he doesn't yet have the same name recognition as Goldschmidt and Arenado. Tyler O'Neill finished 8th in the MVP last year. Yeah. He's really good. He's a 2-time Gold Glover in left field. He's built like a freaking bodybuilder. His dad was Mr. Canada back in the day, bodybuilding, like back in the days of Arnold Schwarzenegger and all those guys, Venice Beach, pumping iron type days. So Tyler O'Neill's really interesting player, really good athlete. As I mentioned, 2-time Gold Glove, super fast, and can hit. I mean, what do you have? 34 homers, I believe, last year. He's really, really good.
Yeah, I was watching him when he was developing through the minor leagues, and I always liked this guy. I knew he was going to be a good, powerful hitter. Yeah, he hit 34 home runs, 286 batting average last year. I'm looking at it right now, 80 RBIs. So yeah, that's a machine right there. And Gold Glove winner as well. Yeah, definitely he fits right in that lineup. That's an amazing 1-2-3 punch. Goldschmidt, O'Neill, Arenado. Yeah, I really like that lineup. And then, like I said, like you said, you have Albert Pujols on the bench. And Mundo Sosa was really good last year for a while. And Lars Nootbaar had a couple of big home runs. I think he had a 2-home-run game.
Yeah, so Nootbaar, I think, is going to be a really solid fourth outfielder type lefty hitter. You mentioned, so Kisner, Andrew Kisner is your backup catcher behind Yadier Molina. I think also Andrew Kisner needs to play more. Yadi's a legend. He's awesome. He's going to be a Hall of Famer. But at this point in his career, I think if Kisner were to play, let's say, close to 1 out of every 3 games, if Yadi plays 110, 115, and Kisner plays whatever that is, 50 games, that probably makes more sense at this point in their career. And then in Mundo Sosa, that's really the one open spot in the lineup is the shortstop position, which is why a lot of Cardinals fans, they wanted the Cardinals to go after this historic free agent class.
Right.
With Correa and Seager and Story and all these guys. That was the one spot the Cardinals could really have upgraded. Now, Paul DeJong was an all-star one year, but that was the year where they had to have one all-star. I was actually at that all-star game.
Oh, really?
He had about 30 homers, but he's inconsistent. He has power. He's got to bring up his average and his on-base percentage. So that's the one spot where Paul DeJong, who's more of a veteran, has a little bit of a contract there. He's going to get the first shot. It's going to be his job to lose. But at the end of the day, whoever hits between Paul DeJong and Edmundo Sosa is going to play the most at short.
Yeah, I liked Edmundo Sosa last year. He was really good too. So that's good to have some options. And then jumping into the bullpen. Let's see if I can bring that up here. Yeah, so you got the bullpen here. Obviously, Gallegos is back. Cabrera is back. And we picked up Nick Whitgren from the Indians or from the Guardians. And then you got McFarland, Drew Verhagen. You talked about could be starting some games. Jordan Hicks, awesome arm there. So what's the bullpen looking like?
Yeah, so the bullpen, it starts there with Giovanni Gallegos is an absolute stud. I mean, he's just one of those perfect relievers for the modern game of baseball that can get you 4 outs, potentially 5 outs. He can get you out of a jam, let's say in the 7th, close out an inning with runners on, and then come back and pitch the 8th. He has been a closer at times for the Cardinals, just here and there. He can close, but again, Ali Marmol has said that he's not going to go with a closer definition necessarily. Oh. Now, if that person basically kind of develops or evolves on their own, that could happen. But I think Ali Marmol is one of these modern managers where if he feels like the toughest spot is the 7th or the toughest spot is the 8th, he's going to bring in his best reliever, which is most likely going to be Gio Gallegos in the 7th or the 8th, and isn't going to care if that person doesn't get a save. So if you're a fantasy baseball fan and player like I am, the Cardinals is probably not going to be the best team for you because there's going to be, like, I can see Gallegos getting a handful of saves. Genesis Cabrera, if there's a matchup because he's a lefty, is going to get a handful of saves. Ryan Helsley, if he comes back and bounces back, he could be a guy that gets a save here and there. Whitgren, guys like that. Jordan Hicks is the one who years ago was the closer. I mean, he's the guy throwing 106 miles an hour back in the day. Has been hurt really the last 3 years, and then he sat out the COVID year 2020. They're trying to work him out as a starter, and the only reason they're doing that is they feel like his arm might recover better from either a starter or a multiple inning role where he then has off days, as opposed to they're just wondering if his arm might not recover great pitching back-to-back days out of the bullpen.
Yeah.
So Jordan Hicks could be a multi-inning reliever for the Cardinals. Probably won't throw 106 anymore, but still will throw close to 100 miles an hour. So I think it'll be a good bullpen. There's a lot of names. You have good depth with guys like Aaron Brooks. You bring in a Whitgren, and Cody Whitley, for example, he might start the year in AAA Memphis. Blake Parker was a minor league non-roster guy, but he's had success back in the day, with the Angels, I believe. So you know how it is with pitching, especially coming off COVID, all the injuries last year. You're going to need 1 million pitchers, especially that first month. The rosters are expanded to 28. So I think you're going to see all these guys. And then it's just figuring out, who stays healthy and who's effective.
Yeah, and I kind of like that strategy that you were talking about. If it's seventh inning is the most vital situation, you're bringing your best guy. I'm kind of, traditionally like the closer, but it makes more sense to me. If you need him in the seventh, you got to get out of a jam, or the eighth, that's when you bring in your guy. And so, like you said, Cabrera will get some saves, Halsey will get some saves, but who cares? It's just the W's are the most important thing. So
yeah, and that's where I think an interesting part of that, we've talked about this a lot over the years with the Cardinals when I've covered the team, is the whole save thing. It's really more about a stat that gets players paid, right? But nowadays, I feel like more relievers that aren't closers are getting better contracts. I mean, look at what a guy like Ryan Tepera makes, a nice 2-year deal. So I think back in the day, relievers were probably ticked off if they weren't getting the 9th inning, because they're like, hey, I need 25 saves. I need 30, 35, 40 saves to get paid. But now if you're going to pay a reliever, like, hey, you got 11 saves, but you got a great ERA and a great whip, and you're great at stranding runners, you're still a very valuable reliever that'll get a nice contract. That's a guy like Gio Gallegos. Gio Gallegos eventually here should get paid pretty good, because he's a really good reliever, even if he's not your prototypical 40-save closer.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think that with the analytics, and teams are starting to understand who's more valuable, who's not, without just looking at the raw stats and everything. But the last thing, or one of the last things to check out here, is any of these prospects are going to make an impact. I'd like to go. Obviously, you got Nolan Gorman. Some decent names here. I don't know if y'all got the best prospect pool, but any of these guys going to make an appearance this year?
Yeah. So, all right, if you go back to the top here. So if you want to start at the top. So Jordan Walker, he was drafted in the COVID year 2020. I think he's 19. If not, he's 20. He is a stud, but he's probably a year away. Now, if he just tears things up in the minors this year, could you see him at the end of the year? The comparison is Chris Bryant with the body type, with the power. This guy can play third. He might end up being a corner outfielder. He is really, really good. First-round pick from 2020. Nolan Gorman is a left-handed slugger who came up as a third baseman. Then, of course, the Cardinals trade for Nolan Arenado, so he has to figure out another position. So he's working to try to become a second baseman. So defensively, we'll see if he can play there. He could also profile down the road as a corner outfielder, but the Cardinals have a super talented young outfield. So it'd be interesting to see if Nolan Gorman can stick at second base. He has huge power. High school draft pick, 3-4 years ago, big time power. Should have 25, 30, 35 home run power in the big leagues. Slugger, probably not going to have the greatest average. He should make his MLB debut this year, I would think. Libertor, he was in that trade for Randy Arozarena, who then has gone crazy. So Matthew Libertor, he has high expectations for that trade to the Rays to ever live up to what Randy Arozarena has done the last couple of years.
Yeah, exactly.
He's a very talented left-handed starter who also should make his big league debut this year. And he's another guy that, I know we have this really shortened spring training. It's not crazy if Matthew Libertor pitched really well that he could have grabbed that 5th spot with Jack Flaherty injured. I'm not sure exactly how they feel about that, but Matthew Libertor should make an appearance for the Cardinals this year, either as a starter if somebody gets hurt, or giving you some length out of the pen. Herrera is a very talented catcher. Probably next year, he's looked upon as the successor to Yadier Molina eventually. Mason Wynn is a very interesting prospect because he's a two-way guy. ridiculous arm and ridiculous bat speed, and they're going to give him a shot to be a pitcher and also a position player.
Oh, really? Wow.
Very young, high school draft pick as well. And then, so Juan Yepez is another interesting guy. He is a first baseman, third baseman, outfield, but really more of a DH. And that's the guy that he might have been squeezed off the major league roster here when they signed Albert Pujols, because I think the Cardinals wanted to give Juan Yepez a chance to get some DH looks here, but the camp has been so short. When you bring in two veterans like Corey Dickerson and Albert Pujols, Juan Yepez might be squeezed off the major league roster, but they look at him as probably a DH type of the future. So even though he's their sixth prospect, he's going to be in the big leagues pretty soon.
I like your depth. I like your team. I like your lineup rotations. If they hang in there, you could be okay. And the last thing is just to check out the division, of course. And last year, like I said, y'all had a big push, and with the Reds are kind of on doing a fire sale. I don't know about the Cubs. I don't know what they're doing. They did a fire sale, and then they signed the Japanese players. So the Pirates are the Pirates. So you don't have a whole lot to worry about. I mean, what do you think of the Brewers? What do you think of the team that you have to worry about here? And do you have any predictions or anything like that?
So, I hate to say it, but the Pirates are the Pirates.
Yeah.
And I don't think you have to worry about them. They're clearly not even trying to compete.
Yeah.
The Reds shed something like $60 million in payroll in a week or so, whatever it was. I mean, they traded everybody, although they just signed one of my favorites and one of just a Cardinals fan favorite, Tommy Pham. Tommy Pham is fun. He's brash. He speaks his mind. He's a great soundbite. He's always giving great interviews. So I hope he does well. It'll be fun to see him for the Reds. But I mean, the Reds, what do you got? You got Joey Votto. You got Luis Castillo still. Reds shouldn't be good. I don't think the Reds will compete. I think the Cubs, could the Cubs push to be a 500 team? They have a sneaky good rotation, actually, with what you have Stroman. You still have the Professor, and then they picked up the Smileys and the Mileys of the world. So yeah. I think they'll be decent. I think the Cubs, when I say surprise, I mean, maybe their surprise is that they're around 500. But to me, this is going to come down to the Cardinals and the Brewers. The Brewers have just top-end pitching. I mean, when you're looking at Corbin Burns and the name, was it
Woodruff?
Yeah. Who is it?
Brandon Woodruff?
Yeah, Brandon Woodruff. So Corbin Burns, Brandon Woodruff are studs. I mean, Peralta was awesome last year. I mean, Adrian Hauser was really good last year. Ashby is an up-and-comer young guy who's really, really good. Lauer as well. So the Brewers have a better rotation. Clearly, they have high-end bullpen pieces. With Hader, might be the best reliever in baseball.
Yeah.
Devin Williams, who's actually from the St. Louis area. He's a Hazelwood guy and has arguably the best pitch in baseball with his changeup, that airbender. He's a great eighth inning guy. He was the Rookie of the Year during the COVID season. So I think their lineup leaves a lot to be desired. We'll see if Christian Yelich can ever return. Can Keston Hiura finally basically figure it out? Colton Wong's one of our favorites, obviously, former Cardinal, Gold Glove type guy, energy guy. So I would think the Cardinals, on paper, I'd put them behind the Brewers because I think the Brewers' starting rotation is so much better. I think the Cardinals' lineup is much better than the Brewers, and I think the Brewers have better bullpen at the top. So I would put the Brewers ahead of the Cardinals right now, and a big part of that's Jack Flaherty. I mean, Jack Flaherty is probably going to miss a month. Maybe he misses more than that. I just think the Brewers' rotation is so strong that they're going to be there all year long. But I think the Cardinals will be too. I mean, I think both those teams make the playoffs.
Yeah, I think it's going to be close. Like I said, last year when it was coming toward the end of the year, like a month left, I had predicted the Cardinals to win the wild card, and they had that great run. So I still think I think they say pitching wins games, but when you have a really good lineup, you score a lot of runs, you're going to win a lot of games too. And so I think it's going to be close. Makes sense to give the Brewers the edge, but I don't know. I might pick the Cardinals. I'm not sure yet, but
and another thing that we didn't mention is the Cardinals had one of the best defenses in history last year. We're talking their run prevention is unbelievable, and that's where I also think some of these pitchers they pick up, whether it's Matz whether it's for Hagen, some of the bullpen pieces, Whitgren, you're going to see guys, in my opinion, who their numbers weren't necessarily great other places, but then you put them in Busch Stadium, which is a ballpark that already suppresses power, especially right-handed.
Yeah.
And then you put these pitchers in front of arguably the best defense. I mean, right up there with one of the best defenses of all time. And I say that because just look at the Gold Gloves that went around last year. You had Gold Glove, Arenado at third, Tommy Edmond primarily at second, but he's a utility guy, Goldschmidt, and then you had Gold Glove in left field with Tyler O'Neill. Harrison Bader, who we haven't mentioned, is an unbelievable defensive player, super fast, can steal bases, and also he has upside offensively to hit potentially 15 to 20 homers and hit triples and hit doubles. Super exciting player. So you take all these pitchers, you put them in Busch Stadium for half their games in front of an unbelievable defense, and you pitch to contact and you throw two-seamers, you try to get ground balls. The Cardinals are going to win a lot of games on the boring old-school fundamentals, which is why I think a lot of people criticize the Cardinals and the Cardinal way. They're kind of boring. But games, when you pitch, you catch the ball, and it's like the old Earl Weaver. If you can just get a Goldschmidt, an O'Neill, or an Arenado to hit the 3-run homer, you're going to win a lot of games.
Yeah, I think so. With that middle of the order, really good. You got the legend coming back. I mean, I don't know how much he's going to. That's another thing I'm a little worried about. What if he stinks? Would the Cardinals ever DFA Pujols? Are you stuck with him? What if he's terrible?
That's a really interesting question. If he stinks, I would think he's at least going to be able to hit lefties enough to stay on the roster. But what you bring up is an interesting point with Albert, and I also think Yadi, because at this point in their career with a first-year manager, like there's going to be pressure, for example, to play Albert more than he should. And Yadi, who's still really, really good, but he probably should sit out once a series. And Yadi doesn't like to do that. And Yadi likes to bat higher in the order than at this point in his career he should. He should probably bat 7th or 8th in this lineup. And so you do have some Hall of Fame guys like Yadier Molina and Albert Pujols, and there's that internal pressure for a first-year manager to play these superstars more than they should, when it's better for the team and Yadi if he takes an extra day off. It's better for the team and Albert if he doesn't hit against a lot of righties. This has already been an interesting question for opening day. We're looking at the Pirates, who the Cardinals are playing on opening day, and we're wondering who they're going to start. I think it's either, is it Keller, the righty, or potentially Jose Quintana, the lefty? And if it's the lefty, you obviously start Pujols. But everybody's saying, no, if it's opening day and it's the best fans in baseball and it's Albert's return, you got to start him on opening day. And that's where the legacy kind of overshadows, hey, he shouldn't start against right. It should be Corey Dickerson. And I know the fans want to see Albert on opening day, but it makes sense to hit Corey Dickerson versus righties.
Yeah, I think you got to do that. You got to do what's best for you, because you end up losing that game. You end up not making the playoffs by one game or something. You're going to look back at that game. Those games are just as important as games in September. So you got to go out and put out your best line. You can pinch hit them a little bit later, and everyone goes crazy. But I think you got to put out your best lineup. But yeah, that could be an issue. That's what I was thinking. But yeah, I mean, I appreciate you coming on and giving all that knowledge on the Cardinals. I really like this team. I think you're in a pretty good division as far as, not a ton of competition, except for maybe the Brewers. The Reds, not that great. Obviously, the Pirates. So I think you guys might win the division, or at least, if not, you're going to the playoffs, I think. So best of luck in 22. I appreciate you coming on. And anything else that you wanted to add?
No, I think what you explained makes a lot of sense. It's kind of boring with the Cardinals, but almost every year, when I say boring, I think fans take it for granted. They have this boring team that always wins like 88 games, right? They're always in the playoffs. They win the division often. They're a wild card often. And they just kind of every year you can almost pencil them in 87, 88, 90 type wins. What I was going to ask you is, I know as a Giants guy, I think I'm very interested and excited to see what Carlos Martinez does if he can make the team for the Giants, because here's a guy I've really kind of followed his career, because when I first got to St. Louis, he comes along, and we've seen him be really good in the playoffs, 13 in the bullpen. He's been a multiple all-star starter.
Yeah.
He had injuries. There's always, he's a very interesting guy off the field. He's kind of got to focus, but he still has a really talented arm. So I'm interested to see with the Giants if he makes the club and if he can be an attribute or a contributor for you guys, because he has high-end talent. He just kind of has to figure it out and be healthy.
Yeah, and I believe he's not that. He's like 30 years old, so yeah, he could still figure it out. I know he didn't have the best year last year. But he's a depth guy, I think, for the Giants, and injuries are going to happen. Guys are going to go on the IL.
It's a high reward, low risk move for the Giants, because here's a motivated guy. Remember his contract; he had a nice contract. I think he made something like about 15, 16, whatever it was, million a year for the last several years. But now he needs a deal, and now he got a minor league deal with the invite to make the team. So a motivated guy like that with talent is dangerous. So you can get the best out of Carlos Martinez here in 2022.
I hope so, because we're going to need that. We're going to need that depth as everyone goes on the IL. We're already having injury issues. It's kind of making me mad. Like, I feel like I could go play baseball for a couple weeks and not get hurt, but maybe not. I feel it's like I'm 42 and I feel like I'm not going to get hurt, but maybe I would. Man, it's harder than I probably think it is. But these guys are just falling like flies, and we're just in spring training. It's like, what's going on? But other than that, I appreciate you, and everyone, make sure you go check out the channel there, Charlie Marlow. I'll put a link in the description, link in the comments, and we'll talk to y'all next time. Good luck to the Cardinals in 2022. We'll see y'all.
Awesome. Thank you, Eric.
No problem. Peace.